Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very special panel looking at technology, access, and opportunity, Latin America's youth at a crossroads. I'm Sarah Mitchell, and I'm very happy to be guiding today's conversation. So across the region, the push for technological inclusion is everywhere. Devices, connectivity, online learning. However, beneath the surface, we're looking at a deeper story, one where every opportunity is uneven, one where access is not only about Wi-Fi or laptops, but about power, language, geography, and agency. Today's session is about interrogating that narrative. We'll spotlight the structural inequalities that persist among these and ask what meaningful access really looks like and how we get there. We're joined by three panelists whose work spans grassroots innovation, global education, and systemic leadership. First of all, I'd like to welcome Gabrielle, who is the Dean of the School of Business at the University of Palermo in Buenos Aires. He holds a bachelor's degree in marketing and an MBA with a focus on finance. As Dean, he oversees academic and business development across undergraduate, master's, and executive education programs, leading a faculty of over 300 professors and a student body where 35% are international. Under his leadership, the school has embraced innovative teaching methodologies and expanded its global reach through initiatives like the online MBA program in collaboration with Coursera. We're also joined by Beatrice Mendes Gandica. Beatrice is from San Cristobal, Venezuela. She's an engineer working as a program manager at Microsoft. In 2018, she started a nonprofit organization, Novo Foundation, where she works to prepare underrepresented students to become tomorrow's leaders. Novo Foundation's mission is to inspire kids to be curious, confident, and courageous by discovering the world of STEM. To date, the nonprofit has taught more than 21,000 students in 33 countries about computer science and STEM education. And last but not least, we're also joined by Dr. Tilo. Tilo is co-executive director of Amantani, a Peruvian NGO that supports young people from over 45 indigenous, Andean, and Amazonian communities to access higher education and dignified employment. With over 30 years of experience in Europe and Latin America, his work has consistently focused on youth justice, social equity, and narrowing structural gaps through grassroots engagements. He leads Amantani's transitions program in Cusco and Loreto, both in Peru, which support young people from school through to higher education and employment through youth development programs, scholarships, and long-term academic and career guidance. Welcome to you all, and thank you so much for joining us for this critical conversation. So in 2025, discussions around youth and digital opportunity in Latin America often spotlight innovation, access, and the premise of inclusion. However, important questions remain, some of which I hope we'll touch upon today. What kind of access are we really talking about, and who is being included and who is being left behind? To start unpacking these layers, let's begin with Beatrice. So I'd like to ask you, Beatrice, you work with youth who do have access to equipment and internet. How does having the right tools change the conversation around STEM inclusion, and what blind spots should we watch for in such contexts?
Sure. So we work with students across the world that have access to computer and internet. It doesn't have to be at home. It just has to be in an organization, in a school, in a public place where they have access to this. Now, having access doesn't mean that they can and necessarily will pursue it. Just having there is just half of the equation, because it opens the door. But if you don't know that there's this thing called computer science, if you don't have the right models, if you don't have the right training, if you don't have someone that looks like you that can tell you that it is possible to work in tech, then I don't know how much having access to it makes a difference. So what we do at Nuevo is making sure that, first of all, we check on our workshops, the ones that we have. We get constant feedback from students across all the geos, across all the ages, because we teach pretty much second grader all the way to high school, and see how can we gauge the workshops that we have so that they are as most useful regardless of where you sit. and the level that you have. Another thing that we have is that we have multiple languages. When I say languages, it's not just computer science languages like Java, Python, JavaScript, C Sharp, and whatnot, but also like the languages like Spanish, like Chinese, like Russian, like Portuguese. So we offer that. That way they can learn in their own native language, even if we're teaching in English or even if we're teaching in Spanish. Now, the hiccup or part, at least in computer science, what happens is that even if you speak any other language, the reserved words are going to be in English. So every time we teach outside of the US or in an English-speaking country, we also have a little English class. So that way they can write their code. It gets a little bit challenging when we work with kids that have never had an English class before, but it's not impossible. It just takes longer. So any workshop that will take us an hour, when doing that, it takes about 2 hours, 2 hours and a half, just to teach the same content. But the content is there. The kids still understand. They grab it. They're excited when they write the first hello world, even though we don't do hello world, but when they do the first shape or when they do the first beats or when they actually get the code to run and they see the successful at the bottom, their joy is just contagious because they're like, okay, I've never done this. I don't know that this is for me. And then 5 minutes, 10 minutes into like the first activity, they're like, I can code. And I think that that's the joy that we bring, and also making sure that whomever is teaching the students feel represented. So if we're teaching a bunch of kids from Latin America, then at least myself or somebody from the team that's also Latino, it's there. If we're teaching kids that are African Americans, which we do a lot, especially in February during Black History Month, we make sure that we have someone from the community teaching. We also have taught in Colombia and Brazil. We have actually teams in there that teach. And so when it's a little bit different, what we do is like maybe the kids don't have access to that computer and to that internet access, but we can still teach on the Blackboard and similar concepts. Is it the same? Absolutely not. But is it possible? It is possible. And if the will is there, they'll find a way, because even though they might not have computer, a lot of them do have phones with internet access, and all our workshops can also be done on the phone. So I just wanted to share that just having access doesn't mean that you're guaranteed success, at least not in STEM. You have to be there. You have to believe it. Somebody has to plant that seed that, hey, it's possible, regardless of your economical circumstances right now. If you can get access to it, there's a lot of free content. Just Novo itself have over 40 workshops for free in any language that you want to look, and videos to guide you. That way we're not limited to someone from Novo teaching the content that we have.
Thank you, Beatrice. Tilo, that it's very interesting that Beatrice mentions the words access and representation, and about making sure that the deliveries are very much contextualized, right? And I know that you have a lot of experience, maybe coming at it from a slightly different angle. So in your case, you work in Santa Clotilde, which is an indigenous remote part of the Amazon in Peru. In Santa Clotilde, digital access is virtually non-existent. So what are we missing, in your opinion, when we talk about digital inclusion in places like Santa Clotilde, for example?
We're missing access, which, of course, Beatrice, you have highlighted it. Once you have access, you have so many opportunities. I just want you to give the context. Iquitos can only reach by plane and by boat. And then from Iquitos to Santa Clotilde, where I work in the Amazon, it is between 6 and 8 hours by boat to reach the biggest city, which is about 6,000 people. It's the center. But the whole district has about 20,000 population scattered around in small communities. So it is already hard when we have a team meeting with our team in Iquitos to get connected, because in Iquitos itself, the connection is very slow, very difficult. And when it rains a lot, and you can't have a video call, and it gets very hard to connect. So you can imagine when you are in Santa Clotilde, where there is not a fiber optic backbone, where 2 months ago, there wasn't a 3G nor 4G connection. The connection was Starlink, and those who could afford Starlink, just to give you a 10 gigabyte package, is roughly a day of minimum wage. But bearing in mind that it's an area of extreme poverty. When we were talking about fifth graders and fifth graders, just now I was there. I asked young people, who of you have a smartphone? It wasn't even 20%. Most young people don't have a connection. Most young people don't have access, and the school doesn't have access. And there comes the problem. That young people from native communities don't have access, and that's it. So we're talking a lot about resiliency. We are talking a lot about how great the young people are, and they are resilient, and they want to study. But I do think the gap is huge, and it's growing. And what means resiliency? Have access to tablets with no connection. And Beatrice, you were touching on something really important. If I don't have experience, how can I get into it? Yeah. So sometimes when young people come to Iquitos and then get access to the internet, they don't have any experience. So it was very theoretical. But browsing the internet, communicating, dealing with social media is another kettle of fish when you suddenly come with the internet access. So I just give you an example. Some young people went to study to Iquitos, and we prepared them, and they were very excited to come to Iquitos, and they got a laptop, and the first thing was, wow, internet, Facebook. I suddenly have 1,000 friends, and I have to interact with these 1,000 friends. And what do I do with these 1,000 friends who want to talk to me all the day? What do I do when I search for information and I have no idea which one is the right information and which is the wrong information? So you guys, these challenges, we all pass through them, but suddenly you are 16, 17, it's the first time you come across with these challenges, and you didn't have the time to get prepared. And for me, another thing is, like, young people in this native community, in Santa Clotilde, come from native communities which are far away, some of them 2 days in boat, where they can't speak to their parents because the parents don't have a telephone line, don't have telephone access. So we are talking really of a digital divide, which is huge. And as an NGO, and we are working with the team at the school, and the teachers, they get, there's sometimes the Ministry of Education says you have to have capacitation,
training skills.
Training, yes, yeah. Training skills, and they say we can't simply. It took me about 4 minutes in Santa Clotilde to get to send a photo. Yeah, so you can imagine what it is. No? So it is. People are resilient, are trying to gain access, are trying to be innovative. However, when you don't have access, it becomes very limited. So that is the challenges in the Amazon.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Tilo. And I think that it's interesting almost to jump from one spectrum to the other, where we're talking slightly, young people also getting to know different platforms for the first time and experiencing these things, as Beatrice was saying. And then we have the other extreme, which is young people maybe coming into contact with this whole new world that they have to get on board with, right? It's part of how they transition as well into modern society. Over to you, Gabrielle, in terms of as someone shaping future business leaders, and looking at this from a slightly different perspective, what role should higher education and policy leadership play in addressing some of these structural inequalities?
Well, we're based out of Buenos Aires, which are in a much better position in terms of connectivity and technology and infrastructure, but we consider ourselves at least a Latin American university. So we currently have around 15,000 students. 30% of them are international students. So we are trying to use these changing times in higher education. I mean, all the higher education institutions are going through a lot of changes in terms of technology, of the use of AI, social and political and economic changes. So we are in a very good position in order to close the gap and work forward. So, in my opinion, my personal opinion is we need to think about two things. One is what we teach. The second one is how we teach. So, first one is how we form our students. We think about not only the technical aspects of educating a university student, but also the personal aspects, all the soft skills, skills related to ethics, sustainability, and the social skills, which are more important than ever. In this world of AI and IT, being a human is gonna be much more important than before. So we are making sure that what we are teaching is relevant for their future. And the second one is how you teach. And this is the word, I mean, I was listening to Beatrice and Tilo. So the word that resonates is flexible. So hybrid models, flexible models, using technology and the way the professors work with technology in order to help the students. So we are working very hard. I mean, most of the universities in the region are working and trying to catch up and trying to adapt and trying to come up with new models for teaching. So just an example, we partnered with Coursera 4 or 5 years ago. We launched many programs with them. We currently have over 400,000 students who enrolled in our programs at the Coursera platform. So in different topics, but mostly social skills like communication and leadership and negotiation and talent development, stuff like that. So I think that there's people can learn from many multiple ways, different technologies, different face-to-face, online, hybrid. So we are working on that. We've been working on that for many years now. So there's a big chance, a big opportunity to close the gap, I would say, in terms of helping students make an impact in the future, right?
Yeah, thank you, Gabrielle. So I still think that one way or another, we've all focused on understanding the context that we're operating in, even though it's very different. Like you say, being flexible and adapting and making sure that what we teach somehow makes sense with how we're transmitting it, and also, making it very clear how we want this to then transition into real life. I'd like to bring all three of you into the conversation now, and to touch on the same questions or the same points. So the three different experiences, scenarios that you've all spoken about are different, but like I said, I think they are connected on a few issues. We're talking about grassroots programs. We're talking about high-level education policy, remote rural realities, all sorts of different platforms. I'd like us to maybe look at, in your opinion, I'll sort of throw these three questions out there, and you feel free to touch on them as however you wish. So I think, I'll start with you, Beatrice, if that's okay. What would it look like if policy initiatives or initiatives that you were involved with began with the most connected, not with the most connected, but with the most disconnected? And if so, can these initiatives with good intentions end up deepening divides or actually bringing, making sure that the gap isn't as wide?
So I when it comes to like policies, I just think that I don't have the solution to solve Tilo's problem. And I was actually chatting with him on the side. I'm like, I cannot solve your problems. I don't know how. To me, that comes from government. It's unfortunate, but how do you speak in a third world country about access when the government is sometimes neglecting? Being from Venezuela, it's hard to not touch upon government. But then you have actual successful examples, like look at El Salvador, look at Uruguay, where now every single student, regardless of how remote they are, they have access to internet and a computer access. So now how do we do that in all of our countries? And even not going that far, talking here in the US, when it comes to Native communities, the school curriculum and the access is completely different. So even in this country, still there's a gap when it comes to those underrepresentation. Now, what we can control or what we can help is how do we make sure that when we're teaching with underrepresented students, call it Title I in the US, or call it any public school in South America, is how can we bring something that's relatively like, how do I say that, local to you, that we can help you. And that's what we do, is work with locals that live in the city, that are from the country, to come with us and teach. And also another thing that we have found out, and sorry if I'm not answering your question, this is just the first thing that came into my mind, is how can we help you at least put that seed that there's this thing called computer science, because I never had and I went to like very good school, private schools at home. I never knew that there was such thing called computer science. We're consumers of tech, but not producers of tech. And I think part of the big reason of Novo is how do we make sure that anybody can be a producer, not just a consumer, and just to turn that, or to share a story, to share like this is possible, without even having the computer yet, just that it is possible, that there's this thing that maybe you didn't think it was for you because the representation is just not there, that exists. I think even without the access, without the internet, without that, I think that's still important. But I just urge all the governments to like, how do we make sure that the gap doesn't keep widening it? And I think there's needs an investment, unfortunately, because as nonprofits, we can move the needle quick, but in order to be sustainable and scalable, there needs to be the other part of the investment as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Tilo, what are your thoughts on this?
I can only agree. It's like you said it, Beatrice. And I want to put another layer onto it, because if you are working in communities which don't have access to electricity. So there's electricity in the mornings and then in the evenings. And there is a local generator which works on petrol, on diesel. So it is about investment. And I think it starts with that. It starts with government policy, which prioritize. Perhaps there comes a little bit of me here also, where I sometimes become a bit of an angry man, because I hear a lot about in the Amazon, we have to be there to save the Amazon, to save the environment. I think it's not only the local government, it's the international community which needs to think about this. I talk a lot to the local leaders, which are called APUs, and they tell me, yes, we are being told that we are the guardians of the wood, of the Amazon, but how can I be a guardian when I'm not connected, when I'm living in poverty, where my children don't have a future? So I think the international community needs to make a commitment to preservation, means investment into education, into access. And I think that for me is really, really important. And as Beatrice says, once this is in place, we can do a lot of work. We can scale. We can teach teachers. Teachers need to be formed into what are the new challenges. I think it is fundamental. And they need, and we need top teachers to go into these communities. That's the other. They need to be well paid, if we want to change the situation. So I think there needs to be a shift in priorities. And that's what I can say about that.
Thank you. No, I definitely agree. And I think that as Beatrice was saying, and obviously, you being in Peru and Beatrice being from Venezuela, I think that on top of these challenges, there's the added, and I'm sure as well with Gabrielle in Argentina, with the sort of up and down political situations, the just make the everyday transition into actual development way more complicated. And unless you're there and you experience it, it's hard to sometimes explain to people just how significant these challenges are for people. Gabrielle, same sort of idea for you. I think what are your thoughts on what Beatrice and Tilo have shared? And do you think that sometimes these tech initiatives or maybe start from a place of good intentions, but actually in the end potentially widen the divide?
Well, yes, I agree. I fully agree with what they previously said. I will add another dimension, which is the company or the corporation dimension. I mean, talent is all over the world. So companies are chasing for talent, but opportunities are not all over the world, right? So you see people with huge talent in a lot of regions, but it's not opportunities are not publicly available to all of them. So we need to work. I mean, we need to incorporate companies. We need to incorporate the institutions and the public sector, and also the professors. As Tilo said, we need to co-design with the students and the professors and the organizations, because the way people learn is not a top-down approach. I mean, it's not say we will work to invest in this sector with this idea. If you don't listen and you talk to the real people, who are taking advantage of this, or who will work in the project, then it's not gonna work. I mean, we are using this part of the world for like ideas coming from somewhere else and say we will invest in this, but doesn't make any sense. So, and I'm not saying that the grassroots approach is better. I'm saying it's more flexible, it's faster, but perhaps the best idea is to work together and collaborate. So I think that the future will be better if we co-design the solution for this type of problems. But the thing I think is more visible now. So we have more visibility. We have more ways to find out what's going on, despite the connections problem or IT that is not available or publicly available all over the world. We are starting to see more opportunities for the rest of the world. Right?
Yeah, so picking up on that, specifically looking towards the future, here's one last reflection, I guess, from all of you. What's one thing we should start doing and one thing we should stop doing? How about Tilo? Start with you.
So I think stop. I wrote it down. It's like stop presenting resilience as a success in this case, because as Gabrielle says, resilience is fantastic, but in this sense, not having access is not having opportunities. And then I would say start treating connectivity as a right and as a public utility, which needs to be there for everybody, and especially in remote areas.
Thank you, Tilo. Beatrice, over to you.
The stop would be a one-size-fits-all, a cookie-cutter solution. just making sure that the cultural and the backgrounds of the students is taken into consideration when teaching tech or any other subject, and start working with more NGOs and nonprofits across those geos that really know the students or really know their situation. That has been great for us to understand in all the countries that we teach.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. Gabrielle, and for you?
Well, as I said, I mean, my idea is that we need to collaborate. The only way to make this work well is to work together. Nobody will thrive on their own. I mean, this is like I see education as a platform, even for institutions. We need to set up the platform. And I mean, we learn from IT. You know, most of the companies now are platforms. So we need to set up an educational platform where we merge all the ideas, all the institutions, and that would be a much better solution for all the students and for the professors as well. So we need to consider all the stakeholders in order to come up with a solution and collaborate in the long term. Otherwise, it's going to be like a single initiatives, well-intentioned, a lot of funding that goes, unnoticed. Nothing happens.
Yeah, no, I think something that's very clear from listening to the three of you is that, it's about listening to communities, talking with them, making sure that they're included in this process, looking at connectivity as a right. I really do think that's fundamental. It's, listening to them, not just wiring them. If we're looking at we're talking about the theme and being about technology. So we appreciate that technology alone doesn't level the playing field. I think that we recognize that, especially talking to the three of you from very different corners, different ways in which you approach access technology, working with young people. And I think that it is possible, change is possible. I sometimes find that it's we think, okay, how do we do it though? And I agree. I think grassroots action is key. I think encouraging leadership, very much bottom down approach, making sure that, as Beatrice was saying, we're including language, we're including context, we're making sure that people have access. Access equals opportunities. I think that that's something that we're taking away today. So I think, let's, as we wrap up this short but very interesting conversation, I'd say let's maybe look at a kind of narrative that doesn't just talk about inclusion, that also demands equity. And I think that's something that's clearly very important for us. And I think that should be equally important to those involved in technology, in connectivity, especially moving this narrative forward for young people around the world. So I'd like to say thank you to the three of you. Thank you for being part of this conversation.
Thank you.
It's been great to learn about what you're doing. And I very much hope that this isn't the last time that we all get to speak together. So thank you so much for joining us, and until next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.